is the structure that is getting affected in which level. So, in anatomy you have studied, this is the brain parenchyma, this is the graphical representation, okay. This is the brain parenchyma, above that this is pia mater which is covering the brain parenchyma. Then there is subarachnoid space in which there is BBB, all the blood vessels that are covering it. Above that there is arachnoid matter, okay. Then there is dura mater. Above dura mater, what do you call this? Epidural space. And below this, there is subdural space, okay. Now, when you talk about meningitis, what is getting affected? Pia mater and arachnoid mater along with the space, right? What is happening here? These meninges, what you call them meninges, these are getting inflamed. Inflammation is occurring here, right? It can present in two manifestations, acute and chronic. Acute will present when? Within hours, okay? Within hours there will be a symptomatic presentation to you. It will escalate within hours. But chronic might last, be persistent for more than around 4 weeks, okay? That is what you call chronic meningitis. Now, it could be of different types: bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic. When you talk about parasitic, you mostly talk about focal lesions and there is specific names to it. One very good example you have studied in cystode chapter. What was that? When I told you brain is getting infected because of Taenia solium, which is coming to you from eating contaminated or uncooked beef or pork. We are talking about pork here specifically because we are talking about neurocysticercosis, right? You remember that much? Okay. So when you talk about meninges, we classify it as acute bacterial meningitis, acute bacterial viral meningitis or chronic meningitis. But how will you see the patient when patient comes to you? What will lead you to the clinical diagnosis of the patient? What will be the symptoms? What do you think? The symptoms would be related to CNS. Headache रहेगा, high grade fever रहेगा in case of acute meningitis. Chronic meningitis case may not have a very high grade fever. He may present with the low grade fever. But in case of acute meningitis, there will be a sudden onset of high grade fever. There will be headache, confusion, right? And some signs of meningeal irritation. What is that? There are some signs of meningeal irritation when you talk about meningitis inflammation, which is neck rigidity, nuchal rigidity, okay. Then there are certain unique signs such as Kernick's and Brusdinski sign. What is Kernick's sign? When you flex the knee at 90 degrees, you can see the hip is also flexed at 90 degrees here and the knee is also flexed at 90 degrees. So when you do this to the patient, it will elicit the pain. Patient will tell you to stop. This pain will be radiating to his back. So when the sign is present, it means that there is a positive Kernick sign, which is the sign of meningeal irritation. Okay. Other than this, there is something known as Brusdinski sign. Have you seen the swimming pool chairs, how they are like this? Have you seen that? When patient, you do this, you passively flex the neck of the patient. How are you flexing the neck? What is flexion? What kind of angle does the flexion has? This is the neck. Am I flexing the neck? No, that is extension. This is flexion. Okay. So when you flex the neck, this patient will voluntarily, involuntarily, he'll flex the hips and knees by himself. Okay, this is positive Brusdinski's sign. These two signs are very important to see if the patient has presented with acute meningitis. Okay, if somebody asks you what are the signs of meningeal irritation or meningismus, you have to say nuchal rigidity, you have to say Karnik sign, and you have to say Brusdinski sign. In Karnik sign, you are doing knee flexion at 90 degrees, it is eliciting the pain. In Brusdinski sign, you are flexing the neck, which is eliciting the pain in hip and knee region. Okay, these two signs are there for meningismus, for acute meningitis. Now coming to other symptoms, what are other syndromes of CNS? Since we have started discussing CNS, you should know how it is broadly classified. So after meningitis, you know that there is acute meningitis, there is chronic meningitis. Then coming to encephalopathy, here only meninges were getting involved, right? In encephalopathy, what is happening? Your brain parenchyma is getting inflamed. So in case of encephalitis, it is showing that there is an inflammation in the brain parenchyma. But in case of encephalopathy, there could be certain primary other organs involved which are leading to encephalopathy subsequently. For example, liver, hepatic encephalopathy. For example, uremic encephalopathy. For example, consumption of lychee. Have you heard? लीची खाने के बाद बच्चों में जो malnourished बच्चे होते हैं उनमें encephalopathy हो गया. They are showing the signs and symptoms of they are comatose, they are having seizures and all those things. Why is it happening? Metabolic problem, right? This lychee is inhibiting the gluconeogenesis in your body. Okay, because this lychee has some substances that reduces the blood sugar. So if the children are already malnourished, it's leading to low gluconeogenesis and leading to hypoglycemic encephalopathy. Okay, so there could be certain other infectious agents also which take decades to develop. Very slow viral infections. What are these infections? Or there could be infections such as cerebral malaria in case of relapse of falciparum malaria, right? So these are the meningitis and encephalitis and encephalopathy. Other than this, there are certain space occupying lesions. What do you mean by space occupying lesions? Certain lesions per to say which have collected pus in the brain parenchyma or meninges. It could be brain abscess, it could be subdural empyema. What is subdural? Below the dura mater, right? Or epidural, above the dura mater, between skin and between bone and where will this appear? Above the dura mater. Then cystic parasitic diseases such as neurocysticercosis we discussed. Neurocysticercosis का positive agent क्या है? Tinea solium. What is happening here? Is it because of the egg? Is it because of Cysticercus cellulose larva? Okay. Then cystic echinococosis comes from what? Echinococosis is what? Smaller cystode. This comes from which animal? Dogs. Okay. What are other infective syndromes of CNS? Suppurative intracranial thrombophlebitis. What does this mean? Vessels are involved. There was a thrombus formation which got infected and there was thrombophlebitis which subsequently can lead to all this brain abscess formation and all these things. Okay. Then there are CSF shunt infections. What does this mean? There is surgical intervention in this case. Okay. Maybe you are draining the ventricles and through the shunts, some bacterial infection has occurred. For example, Acinetobacter, very common organism, okay, very commonly found in CSF shunts. Myelitis. Myelitis is what? Inflammation of spinal cord. Okay. What does the central nervous system comprise of? Brain and spinal cord. So we call the inflammation of spinal cord myelitis. What is the example? Positive organism, virus, polio virus, right? Or it could be due to neurotoxin mediated by Clostridium tetani or Clostridium botulinum. These are all infective syndromes of the CNS. Okay. What could be the route of infection? Most common route is entry into subarachnoid space through choroid plexus through blood vessels of the brain. So blood vessels में कहाँ से आया? From certain primary organ which got infected, right? There was infection at certain other places, let's say lungs, pneumonia tha patient ko, and he got bacteremia, and subsequently there was occurrence of meningitis. Okay, that is hematogenous spread. Then what is direct spread? Direct spread matlab surrounding the brain there are certain organs that you have. For example, otitis media, some ear infection happened, it's very close to your brain, right? This infection, or there are tonsillar infection from pyogenes, or you could say sinusitis is there. So all these are very weak areas. There could be a direct spread from infected sites to the meninges, right? Then there is anatomical defect in the CNS. Very easy to say if there is RTA or any surgery that involved your ear, eyes or brain. It could be subsequently lead to infection by any virus or bacteria. Then direct intraneural spread. Intraneural spread का एक example सबको पता है. What is that? We studied in last to last class, herpes we studied. Plus there is one thing that you have not studied but you know. What is that? Because of dog bite? Rabies virus. So it is said that in the body, if the dog is biting you at the leg and if he is biting you at the hand or the neck region, who will die first? Out of these two patients, which patient will die first? The second one, because it was very close to this brain, right? So, जितना close proximity होगा brain से, उतना ज़्यादा disease progression जल्दी होगा, ठीक है? In case of rabies, okay? That was all about acute. Did we discuss about acute meningitis? Etiology depends on what? Wait, chronic meningitis. Okay, let's discuss acute bacterial meningitis. So in acute meningitis, there is inclination towards the age. For example, what is the most common causative agent to cause acute meningitis? Streptococcus pneumoniae. If you see in all age groups. But in neonates, I told you in the last class, Streptococcus agalacti has been seen having more percentage, more prevalence. Why? Where is this Streptococcus agalacti coming from? It's coming from birth canal, from the mother, right? In case of Streptococcus agalacti, we see about two kinds of meningitis. First is early onset and second is late onset. Late onset में two things are involved. एक है birth canal, दूसरा है healthcare workers' hands. So if the healthcare workers is giving care to the neonate and he develops meningitis over the time, so there is a chance that many neonates are getting infected. So there is a chance of outbreak in late onset meningitis. Okay. In early onset, mother is the one who is giving the infection, right? In that case, which one is more dangerous? to control the second one is more dangerous, right? What should happen in case of Streptococcus pneumoniae? Where is it coming from? In most of the acute bacterial meningitis cases, transmission occurs through inhalational route. Okay, what is inhalational route? You are inhaling these organisms and they are residing on your nasopharyngeal tract, and further infection is occurring through pneumonia or through hematogenous spread. They are attacking your brain, right? So we discussed about in case of neonates there was Streptococcus agalacti. What was the other organism? There are certain other enterobacterials such as E. coli in case of neonates and Listeria. Okay, in case of more than 65 age group who has immunity almost as same as the neonates, again Listeria will come into action. Okay, what are other most common causative agents? Neisseria meningitidis, very important. Okay, Neisseria meningitidis. Now this is about acute bacterial infection. In case of acute viral infection, what should happen? What could be the etiological agents you could think of? You studied about HSV? Below the belt region infection, above the belt, HSV2 virus. Which one is common in neonatals? HSV2, okay. What else? Okay, one virus that you know actually, which can cause any kind of infection, happens in immunosuppressed people, causes the immunosuppression. HIV, yes, okay. But it will cause what? It will cause chronic meningitis. Okay. Then there is something called as Coxsackie virus. It's named after the place Coxsackie. Okay, Coxsackie virus A and B. That can also cause. What is the manifestation that the Coxsackie virus cause? Name of the disease is hand, foot, mouth disease. Okay, characterized by the certain lesions on these areas. Okay, this can also lead to the sequel. Now coming to agents of chronic meningitis. First thing given here is partially treated suppurative meningitis. What does that mean? This means that acute meningitis is so severe that you have to start treating it as soon as the patient has presented to you with the symptoms. You do not wait for the targeted antimicrobial therapy after taking CSF sample. How do you collect CSF sample? Through lumbar puncture. So whenever this patient is getting admitted, you have to definitively start coverage, empirical therapy. What will it cover? Gram negative and gram positive. So in those cases, what are we considering? Ceftriaxone and vancomycin. Okay, I am telling you the empirical treatment for acute meningitis. Then, in case there is Listeria, you are suspecting a Listerial infection or a neonate has presented, you will give ampicillin. Ampicillin along with gentamicin or ceftriaxone. Okay. But let's say a person has come to you with the history of focal seizure, confusion, okay, blurring of vision, and there is a history of, but you have tested this person, there is no history of HIV, but this person has no cough, but there is history of TB infection 2 years ago. What should you suspect? This is a case of chronic meningitis because of tuberculosis, right? Tuberculosis can cause chronic meningitis. The prognosis of tuberculous meningitis is very poor. Very, very poor. Okay. What are other infections? Borrelia burgdorferi, Lyme's disease. This can also cause chronic meningitis. Treponema pallidum. Syphilis. You have studied about syphilis? Not yet. But syphilis, when it reaches to the tertiary syphilis stage, it can cause inflammation to your brain parenchyma and meninges. And this will lead to two significant things. What is that? Tabes dorsalis, okay, neurological deficit in the person, and general paresis of the insane. That is generalized confusion, disorientation, loss of voluntary movements, all that. Okay, these two terms you have to remember in case of Treponema pallidum or tertiary syphilis case. Okay, what are other rare bacterial agents? These are the rare bacterial agents. Leptospira you have studied. Causes what? Leptospirosis. What is the triad for Leptospira? Rodents, rain and rice fields. Okay. Then there is Brucella. You have studied Brucella. Where did we study Brucella? Bloodstream infections. Okay. Trophirema whipplei is found in the fields and can attack immunocompromised people. Okay. Actinomyces and nocardia can cause subcutaneous mycosis, subcutaneous infections, right? Then there are certain viral agents we are discussing about. Mumps. Mumps का जो significant presentation होता है, what is that? It infects your parotid gland. So whenever there is mumps in the picture, you think about parotitis, and this parotitis has lead to chronic meningitis. Okay. Then there are certain ecoviruses that are related to this. Herpes virus we discussed HIV or lymphocytic choriomeningitis virus. These all are related to chronic meningitis. What will be the presentation? Low grade fever, mental confusion, loss of neurological deficit, seizure, in some cases coma. Okay. Which one is more severe and needs the immediate treatment? Acute meningitis. Okay. Then certain parasitic agents that can lead to chronic meningitis. These all are parasitic agents covered in the specific chapters. We have studied that because direct chronic meningitis is not happening. They are affecting, they are entering the body through primary site of target, and then they are affecting the meninges. Okay. Cryptococcus neoformans, where have you studied this thing, this term? This is a true yeast. Cryptococcus is a true yeast. What is the sign of how will you diagnose true yeast in the lab? You check for the Cryptococcus capsules in what? CSF sample, right? You will take CSF sample, you will stain it with India ink, and then you will see capsule. That is for Cryptococcus neoformans. Candida, you know, it's a yeast-like budding yeast cells you will observe which are gram-positive in gram staining. We'll come to laboratory diagnosis. I'm just telling you the findings that you will see in particular cases. Okay. What are these four? They are dimorphic fungi. They appear in two forms, two morphologies, 37 degree and 25. What is the mold form? Which temperature? And in the human body, they will appear in the yeast form. Whenever you are suspecting acute or chronic meningitis, you will take the sample from the region infected. So what is the sample you will take here? CSF, which is to be taken in aseptic precautions in sterile container. When or else you can take blood sample. Blood sample to see bacteremia. Okay. Then when you are taking CSF sample, you should never refrigerate CSF sample. You should keep it at what? Room temperature. Because CSF sample is what? Sterile sample. Okay, there is no pre-microbial contamination in it, such as urine or stool sample, that you have to refrigerate it. You have to keep the CSF sample at room temperature until you process it. Okay. Only if you are suspecting any, if you are taking it for any molecular study, you can store the sample in the fridge. Otherwise, CSF should always be stored outside. Okay. When you are transporting it, this CSF sample should be divided into 3 parts. First part for cell count. You will give it to whom? To pathology. Okay, they will find what are the cells. They'll do the pathological study of the CSF sample. Second part, you will go to the biochemistry people. Biochemistry may, they will see certain enzymes. Okay, for example, ADAs, let's say, or any other, for example, proteins, lactates, or anything, whatever comes under biochemistry. Talking about the blood serum also here. Okay. Then one part you will give to microbiology for culture, so that you could culture the CSF sample. Okay. So, based on this biochemical and cytological analysis, you can differentiate them into 3 parts, into 3 major sections that you are suspecting. For example, pyogenic meningitis. By pyogenic, we mean bacterial infection. Okay. Then tuberculous meningitis, which involves tuberculosis, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and viral meningitis. Okay. In these cases, what are the parameters we are seeing? CSF pressure, total leukocyte count, what is the predominant cell type in this count, and in the WBC count, and glucose, how much is the glucose, and total proteins. Okay. So, you see here, out of all these 3, this is the normal individual. The normal counts you should know. CSF pressure 50 to 150 is the normal. Total leukocyte count about up to 5 per 1 ml. Okay. Then predominant cell type, lymphocytes. What is the glucose? 40 to 70 milligram %. Total proteins 15 to 45. Now coming to this side, you see that in pyogenic meningitis, neutrophils are elevated. Neutrophils are elevated very high. Okay. But in tuberculous and viral meningitis, you will see that the lymphocytic count is raised. Okay. And in case of pyogenic meningitis, glucose will be very low. Okay, less than 40. Here, it will be slightly decreased. But in case of viral meningitis, it is not utilizing glucose for any of its metabolism. It will be normal. Normal or very, very slightly low. Okay. So, you have to remember, there is the sign, this neutrophilic raise is there and glucose is very low. Then you can go for CSF pressure. CSF pressure is highly elevated because of density here. Over here, it is moderately elevated, and in viral meningitis, it could be normal or slightly elevated. Okay. Then total proteins. Total proteins, again, in case of pyogenic meningitis, they are markedly increased. In case of tuberculous meningitis, moderate to markedly increased. And here, everything is normal here except lymphocytic raise is there, and you can figure it out based on glucose, there will be normal glucose count. Okay. Then when you receive the CSF sample in the laboratory and perform gram stain, what will you perform? If you are suspecting tuberculous meningitis, you will perform ZN stain. What will you see on ZN stain? Acid fast, pink color, bacilli if there is tuberculous history. Okay. In case of gram staining, based on the appearance of CSF gram stain, you can suggest the organism. What could be these organisms? In case of Streptococcus pneumoniae, you will see that they are gram-positive cocci in pairs, lanceolate shape, right? What is lanceolate shape? Or flame shaped or lens shaped, okay? Then you see Neisseria meningitidis. Neisseria meningitidis and Neisseria gonorrhoeae, they both are gram-positive diplococci, gram-negative diplococci, and how to differentiate? Gonorrhoeae will be kidney-shaped, and over here will be this Neisseria meningitidis will be half moon shaped. Okay, this is the difference between the two. Then there are pleomorphic gram-negative coccobacilli which are capsulated. They are Haemophilus influenzae. We forgot to mention about one more very important acute bacterial etiology, that is Haemophilus influenzae. Okay, Escherichia coli, you know, gram-negative bacilli. Streptococcus agalacti, gram-positive cocci in chains. Which group does this belong to? Streptococcus agalacti. Group B, Streptococcus. Very good. Then Listeria monocytogenes. This is a gram-positive bacilli. Okay. Can you name some gram-positive bacilli? Any other than Listeria? This was for gram staining. Using the CSF sample, what else can you do? You can go for antigen detection through CSF sample and through urine, or you can perform PCR, or you can perform biofilm array, which has the panel for acute or chronic bacterial or viral meningitis. It has all the causative organisms, which runs PCR for all these organisms, and it will give you automated report, that is PCR. Okay, but what is conventionally done is the culture of CSF sample. For that, what you are using? Enriched medium. What is enriched medium? It has nutrients for the bacterium to grow. So, you can use chocolate agar, you can use blood agar, or differential media like McConkey agar. Why are we using this? In case there is E. coli, you will be able to see lactose fermentation. Okay. Or else, you can also inoculate the CSF sample into DHI broth or blood culture bottles for the bacterial identification. Then, in case of Streptococcus pneumoniae, we saw that it will show you on gram stain. What will it show you? How will it appear? Gram-positive cocci in pairs. Okay. In culture, it will produce alpha hemolytic colonies on blood agar. Okay, what is alpha hemolysis? Partial hemolysis. Okay, what is the biochemical identification that is specific for Streptococcus pneumoniae? It will show bile solubility, and it will ferment inulin. Inulin is a certain kind of sugar. It will ferment inulin, and it is sensitive to the optochin disc. Optochin is antibiotic. Okay. These things are specific for Streptococcus pneumoniae. Then Neisseria meningitidis. It is catalase positive, oxidase negative. It ferments glucose and maltose but not sucrose. And Neisseria gonorrhoeae only ferments glucose. This will ferment glucose and maltose. This is the differentiating factor between Neisseria meningitidis and gonorrhoeae. Okay. You can also go for serogrouping in case of meningitis. Then Haemophilus influenzae. For Haemophilus influenzae, you have to provide certain nutrient. This bacterium has nutrient requirement, which is factor 10 and 5. What is this? There is a thing that you have to know. This, if you inoculate H. influenzae along with Staphylococcus aureus, what will Staphylococcus aureus do? It will break the RBCs, and these RBCs will release the elements that are required for Haemophilus influenzae growth. So it will show satellitism. It will grow between the colonies of Staph aureus. Okay, and given that blood agar jab banta hai, you are not heating it. So heating will not release all these nutrients from the RBCs. So this organism will not grow specifically on blood agar, but it will grow on chocolate agar. Why? Why is that? Because in chocolate agar you are heating it at 55 degrees, right? That is the reason H. influenzae, for H. influenzae you are using chocolate agar as English medium. Okay. Then Streptococcus agalacti, I had shown you this picture in last class. This is what? Positive CAMPS test. What is this? Staph aureus. And this? Streptococcus agalacti. So wherever there is meeting between these two, there is enhancement of this beta hemolytic zone. So this is Streptococcus agalacti positive. Okay. You know that it belongs to Gruppus family. It is beta hemolytic on blood agar. There is camptase positive. It is resistant to bacitracin, which differentiates it from Streptococcus. Then coming to gram-negative bacilli, you know there are certain gram-negative bacilli. You have already studied this much. Gram-positive, gram-negative bacilli, E. coli, Klebsiella. What is the test that you are using for biochemicals? Indole, citrate, urease and triple sugar iron. Very good. So you can use that. In case of non-fermenters, you are performing catalase and oxidase reaction. So non-fermenters such as Pseudomonas, it will be oxidase positive. Acinetobacter will be oxidase negative. They'll produce non-lactose fermenting colonies, and you can do the further biochemical identification through these tests. Okay. There is one new organism that you learned today, that is Listeria monocytogenes. I told you it is gram-positive bacilli. What is special about this bacilli? It will show you tumbling type of motility at 25 degrees. But this motility is lost at 37 degrees. Okay, this motility is temperature dependent. So at 25 degrees, Listeria will show tumbling type of motility. Also, it grows on the agar which contains mixture of antibiotics, and it shows these colonies on the agar. This agar has so many antibiotics that other organisms such as staph or other pathogenic organisms cannot even grow. Okay, and that is why we are using this agar. Okay, that was about culture and identification in case of bacterium. In case of viruses, what will you do? You will take the CSF sample. What will you do? You can perform certain agglutination tests for antibodies. You can perform PCR, and how will you treat these viral infections? If there is HSV involved, you will give acyclovir. But if there is another viral infection, you will try to treat the symptoms. What will you give the patient? Antiemetics, antipyrexics. Okay. Along with this, along with the antibiotics, patient presents to you with increased intracranial pressure. How will you see that on patient? You will see the papillae edema. It's an ophthalmological finding. So, to reduce this intracranial pressure, you will give glucocorticoids. Okay. In case of acute bacterial meningitis. Then coming to encephalitis, we discussed shortly before starting the class what is encephalitis. It is acute inflammation of brain parenchyma. Okay, over there in meningitis, meninges were involved. Here the brain parenchyma is involved. What are the manifestations you can see? A person would have an altered consciousness, behavioral changes, seizure, focal neurological deficit and involuntary movement. So, basically there is nothing that will tell you that this infection is acute. So based on this history, you have to find the cause if there is certain other primary site of target in the body, or if there is something else involved, such as metabolic disorder or toxins, okay, any other disease such as hypoglycemia leading disease, okay. What are the common etiological agents that can cause encephalitis? Certain viruses. Rabies we discussed, herpes or arbovirus. What is commonly found in states like Bihar, Jharkhand, all these states? There is one thing that is very prevalent there, that is Japanese encephalitis. We are talking about encephalitis. We are not talking about bloodstream infections right now, okay? Your answer was right, but not the answer to my question. Then, certain parasites such as Toxoplasma gondii. It comes from which animal? Cats. Naegleria fowleri. This is what? It's an amoeba. Have you not studied Naegleria fowleri yet? Okay, this is amoeba that is causing encephalitis. These are all the common causative agents of encephalitis. Suppose you have been given the case report that a patient presented to you with these symptoms, and you will be given the question, write 3 causative agents and clinical and laboratory diagnosis for these agents. So you should be able to write all these agents and their diagnosis, okay. Such question can come. Also, we discussed about encephalopathy. Encephalopathy, I told you there is altered brain function and structure. Causative reason could be metabolic, it could be any toxin, or it could be infectious also, but in very long duration. Like slow virus, you have heard of prions? You have heard of prions? Where do prions come from? Prions come from uncooked meat. Animal infected with prions, which are slow growing viruses, they come from this meat and they have a very long duration of action. They take around 10 to 12 to 15 years to present as symptom, okay, and they directly attack this region. They can cause encephalopathy. In case of encephalopathy, you will perform CSF examination. You can go for imaging studies. What is imaging studies? MRI. Okay, you can go for encephalograms that will tell you the functioning of the brain. Then, briefly we discussed about space occupying lesions. Focal CNS lesion or cystic parasitic lesion. Focal CNS lesion में क्या हो रहा था? Any bacteria what would be causing abscess in the brain. Okay, could be Staph aureus, could be Cryptococcus. Cryptococcus is what? True yeast, it's a fungus, okay. Cystic parasitic disease could be there. For example, neurocysticercosis. There could be these focal CNS lesions depending on the area they are attacking, epidural or subdural abscesses. We won't go into the depth of this, but primarily you need to, and this is how on radiological finding a space occupying lesion would look, okay. Okay, rest. Myelitis we discussed. Myelitis is the inflammation of spinal cord. We gave you gave a very good example of rabies. There is another thing, that is poliovirus. What are the 3 countries in which poliovirus is still prevalent? Have you seen polio cases recently anywhere? One country you told. What was that? You said Pakistan. And Pakistan के बगल में क्या है? Okay, good. And एक बता दो और. जोर से. वो तो बोल दिया अफगानिस्तान और ईरान नहीं मतलब you are just taking the countries neighboring each other. It's not like that. It depends on how your government is working for you and how people are aware and how they want to and how the cases are being found out. There are certain cases still hiding. If there are certain cases still hiding, you will have to report them, you will have to treat, you will have to take the preventive measures.